Welcome to Question and Answer of the Week. This week's question is based on chapter 5 through 7 of my book, Beat the System, Create Your Own Pathway to Wealth. If you don't have the book, you can get a free download on my website at lindaleesmith.net, Linda with a Y. So this week's question is, I'm having a hard time setting a reasonable allowance to spend for myself. Is there a best practice that you use to come up with this number? So as you read the book, we go through a series of breakdowns of your controllable expenses versus your expendable income. And it really depends on how much money you have left after you've determined what you want to have in your savings, which ultimately leads to your investments at the end of any given year. And all of that connects to your 5-year goals as well. So it's going to be different per person based on your revenue today, your income level, and what you want to save. But what I would tell you to do is when you go through that exercise, and you can download the workbook, you can also download individual chapters specifically on the topics that you're interested in. But what I tell people is make sure that it's reasonable based on what you're spending, but you also have a little sacrifice in there. You are trying to now look at a longer term objective. So maybe the daily eating out and the daily expensive coffees or the daily yogurts or whatever it is that you have loved to do that consume your expendable income, some of that's going to have to go away most likely in order to focus on your bigger life dreams. So you need to practice a few weeks with different amounts of money. I can tell you, and it's may sound like not much, but in the early years, 25 plus years ago, Doug and I spent less than $25 a week in cash. Given this money is for the occasional coffee, the occasional treat, you want to psychologically continue to treat yourself so you don't feel like you're depriving yourself, and then you lose sight of your end goals. So it's very important that you do this. But at the same time, it needs to be reasonable and it needs to be solely connected back to your end game. What is it that overall you're trying to achieve? So this amount may be much smaller in the beginning. As your income increases over the years, you can gradually increase these funds a little at a time. Even today, 25 years later, Doug and I still don't have a huge amount of cash that we spend on a weekly basis, but we still have it, and we make sure that's our free money. And in the book, I talk about how important it is that you give yourself free money so that you can feel like you're enjoying your life on a daily and a weekly basis. So I hope this will help. The podcasts actually go into much more detail on these specific topics, so look for me, Linda Lee Smith, A Guide to Health and Wealth, on iTunes or your podcast app, and you can hear a little bit more in detail on the specifics that you specifically care about.